From concrete experiences to concrete comprehension. This project is important to me to fully demonstrate my understanding of the materials covered throughout this course. I may have physically been present and attentive in class, but there is a difference between superficial understanding and comprehension. The course content is exceptionally abstract and subjective. Thorough analysis of the readings and supplementary information is needed to fully grasp the core concepts. I enrolled in this course because in high school I enjoyed philosophy. For the first 2 years of high school, I went to the International School of Indiana, where I studied the IB program. One key component of the IB program is Theory of Knowledge, or TOK. After a few classes, I definitely realized that the course was not exactly a philosophy course, but I realized that I would still enjoy the course. I've always struggled with seeing the bigger picture of my university experience classes. As a science student, I often learn information that has no immediate real-world experience. For example, I can tell you exactly how a cell divides and the steps and enzymes that are involved in the process. It may not immediately be useful in my everyday life, but I will need this information before I can further my understanding of other scientific processes. From the first assignment, I knew the class would help me grow and develop. I had known about LinkedIn and wanted to make one, but I did not get past essentially creating an account and making a general profile. Part of the reason was because I did not necessarily know how, nor was there immediate incentive to. Being graded on the presentation and overall development, a LinkedIn profile gave me the motivation I needed. The discussion of the first assignment gave me the validation I needed to understand that this class would be much different and useful from other university classes I have previously taken. That being said, the first assignment was not a complete breeze. It made me reflect on my network, communication skills, and ambition. As a result, it gave me some insight on how to grow as an individual. It encouraged me to develop real-world skills I would need to further market myself. In doing so, this course really helped me become a much more successful student. From the midterm reflection, there was an excerpt called Social Schemata for Remembering People by Alan Fisk. The excerpt discussed the intricacies and tools that people can use to be remembered. From there, I began to reach out to my other professors and advisors more. This was the first year I enrolled in student accessibilities, and as a result, I did not know much. Thankfully, I had the support of my statistics professor, Dr. Azad, student accessibilities, specifically Anthony Gomez, and some fellow classmates. Initially, it was a bit difficult to get in contact with some of my fellow students. As a result, I decided to be proactive and make a Facebook group. From there, I was able to get a little bit more students involved. However, some had to make a Facebook because either they did not have one or did they not really use it. It was a bit easier there because, as you can see, I did get 23 of the students involved. Some others I was able to connect with either from LinkedIn or other social media that I did try to include in the Facebook group, but obviously it was a little bit more difficult. Thankfully, I had a LinkedIn profile where I was able to reach out to other people, either from high school or from the pharmaceutical companies that I knew. And I even reached out to someone that I watched on YouTube who was making videos about the capabilities approach in order to better understand the material. This course helped keep me accountable and develop better habits in planning. For most of my other classes were asynchronous, so it was tough to find a balance between keeping up with classes, work, and other everyday day-to-day events. However, on Wednesday, I knew exactly where I would be in the evenings. The main takeaway from this course is the significance of networking and connecting to others. By far, the most memorable moment of this course was being able to present to BlackBerry. The most memorable thing out of the classroom was making friends with my classmates, especially in this strange online times. Now for the core concepts. One of the main frameworks we learned about is called Flooring Cycle. This is essentially a framework that we use to analyze and better understand experiences. We take a real-world experience, we reflect on the experience from as many different perspectives as possible, Then we broaden the experience, break it down to its core fundamentals, make it as overarching as possible. From there, we use what we learned from those core concepts and experiment and try to see what we learned. Again, this is a cycle, so it's repetitive. It doesn't just go from point to point to point. From the experimentation phase, we reflect on it, and then restart again. We take that experience and we see if we have learned anything. The framework that is much more difficult to understand is the human development and capability approach. This focuses on the significance of the capabilities, freedoms, and functionings, and these frameworks are interconnected and overarching. Functionings are essentially states and activities that constitute a person's being. Essentially, if someone's healthy versus unhealthy, they're treated fairly or unfairly. The purpose of development is to expand all human choices. It emphasizes people's capabilities in the present and in the future, in all aspects of life, whether it's economic, social, political, or cultural. Human development draws emphasis on values and priorities so that people are able to better reflect profoundly on their circumstances and shape their respective societies. An essential test of development is whether people have greater freedoms today than they did in the past. The capability approach focuses on society and how it should aim to expand people's freedoms to promote or achieve what they value doing. The language used to describe these frameworks is pretty rigid in order to avoid certain connotations and certain sentiments, but essentially, capability is the freedom to choose. One's capability determines whether someone can achieve something or not. The freedom to choose is so important for the well-being of individuals because many of them do not realize they could be living a different life. In order to more easily understand both the Kolb's learning cycle as well as the human development and capabilities approach, let's integrate both of them. For the first group assignment, one of my group members seemed to be absent and unresponsive. She had not appeared in class, and the only time I had heard from her was during the evening of the submission of the LinkedIn assignment. From the perspective of my group members and I, it seemed as if she did not want to partake or assist in the group presentation. I assumed she was trying to get a free ride on the group project, or she was having a tough time in school. Eventually, she got in contact with us and told us that she had used a VPN in order to use Facebook. She also told us that there was an 11 to 13-hour time difference for her. By examining the 10 capabilities, I'm able to better understand the experience. I was letting my emotions allow my mind to create excuses for the lack of communication. I was annoyed and angry because I thought I had done almost everything I could to reach out with no success. Although I did reach out, I did so in only a handful of ways. I used Facebook and LinkedIn while another group member tried her school email. I was thinking and imagining what must be happening to her, what she was going through, but the reality never crossed my mind. My groupmate had no control over the political situation in her country. In this case, she lived in China, which regulates the media. She's risking her safety every time she uses that VPN. Just as my parents live in the United States, she is living with her parents in China. I knew that Facebook was not allowed in China, but at the time, I did not come to the realization that my outreaching attempt through Facebook was futile. Looking back at this example, from the more conceptual approach, it is important to communicate and ask what is the best means of contact for every group member, not most group members, every single one as individuals. Additionally, this can be applied to emphasize the human development and capability approach in the sense that it is abstract because it varies across culture, time, and sex. From this experience, I was able to have a better understanding of the situation, and as a result, I was able to use this knowledge to begin the cycle again. If I had to retake this course again, one thing that I would do differently is reach out to my classmates sooner. That way I could just build a better and more profound meaning with them. And if I had a piece of advice for future students, it would definitely be go to class could probably do relatively well in this class. Even if you didn't attend, you just do the readings and everything. But for me personally, it's not really about the grade in this class. I did enjoy going every week, and that's why I went. Of course, the grade does help, but it's more so the experience and everything. One piece of advice or an adjustment that could be made for the course would be potentially smaller, more frequent projects. That way, just to get into the habit of working as a team, and not only that, maybe changing up the groups if some people didn't like it. And then the last piece would just be to potentially provide more incentive either to attend class and participate, or at least watch the recap of the lectures and just to see what's going on. I don't know how the incentive would be made, maybe like potential marks or bonus marks or something.